the Reform Party, I think a good clue for what it stands for is in the name. We're about reform, political, economic, constitutional reform of Singapore. So not only do we believe that we believe that competition is as vital in the political sphere as in the economic one. I think, as I said in an earlier interview, the problem with a one-party state is, at least in Singapore's case, not corruption, but the fact that it leads to a society of yes-men and closure to new ideas. So we believe in freedom of expression. You may not like what other people are saying about you, but that's one of the strengths of a democracy. But you can react and receive criticism and adapt to that. But going back to what the Reform Party stands for is, we believe in freedom of expression. We believe in dismantling the statist economic structure of the top-heavy GLC preponderance in the economy. I talked about privatizing Temasek. We are there not to be just a watchdog or to provide a check and balance. We are there, the proper aim of any political party is to form the government. And what I set out to show was that the PAP does not have a monopoly of talent. There's definitely just as able people out there, and Singapore is not going to fall apart if an alternative government were one day to take office. In fact, that's our objective. The Reform Party is there to be in government one day. Maybe, obviously not at the next election, maybe not at the election after that, but certainly within 2 elections we hope to be challenging. That was something that I wanted to do for some time, but the question is, why I didn't go in earlier. And it was my father. I came back to Singapore actually to be with him because he was quite ill during the last 6 months of his life, and then after that I received a lot of messages saying that that someone should take up his mantle and continue the struggle for democracy and reform in Singapore, and it was this that inspired me to take it on. Let me classify. Firstly, you talk about run-ins of the law, and he was convicted and sent to prison for I think a month. But when he appealed, he wasn't able to appeal on that conviction because of the process, technicality. It had ended in the High Court, but he still had the right of appeal to the Privy Council because he was struck off as a lawyer by the Chief Justice at that time, and he appealed to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council delivered a stinging rebuke of the conviction because they said he'd suffered a grievous miscarriage of justice. He'd been convicted of a crime of which he was not guilty, and even though they couldn't set that conviction aside, they called upon the government to do so, and they restored him to legal practice. But the government, after that, very shortly after that, they abolished the right of appeal to the Privy Council, they resisted all calls to overturn that conviction. So I don't, when you talk about run-ins with the law, I don't think that anybody would agree that it was he had actually committed any wrongdoing. And it's distressing that also quite a lot of the textbooks in Singapore they talk about him being convicted and debarred from Parliament, but they don't mention the Privy Council judgment, which set this aside. I mean, the rest were defamation suits, which were brought by private individuals against him. And certainly the Reform Party, we haven't played that up, but they would seek reform of the law on libel, maybe to either restrict damages or to allow a much wider interpretation of fair comment. it didn't really, it never bowed my father, because he was buoyed up by his Christian convictions that, he was serving his fellow man, and to him he didn't, riches were not important to him. He certainly ensured that, I and Philip were educated, and he paid for our Cambridge education, and we were able to pay off his bankruptcy in the final, about a year before he died, which was, quite good. But I don't think he was ever bowed by it. So, when you talk about whether we were affected much by it, I think we were inspired by his example. That's your judgment, not mine, that they're not up to scratch. What's your yardstick for that? One thing is for sure, they're not in it to make money, and that means up to scratch by my standards. I don't think we want to go into a one-on-one comparison with some of the PAP newbies who've been plucked from obscurity and then can shelter in the obscurity of a huge bloc constituent, a huge GRC. So, they've not, when you talk about up to scratch, they've not really faced a big electoral battle. So I don't think that's a fair comparison. But certainly, the Reform Party is about showing that we have quality candidates, that we're about alternative policies, not attacks on the personalities. But if the PAP were to leave office tomorrow, there are people waiting in the wings with the ability to take over. Well, firstly, what you're talking about, apathy, is really the climate of fear, and that's gone on so long it's become fossilized. So what we're saying is, we are standing up, or that you have to stand up. The PAP is not a junta. The PAP, you elected them. If you want to see change, you have to come forward, you have to vote for the opposition, you have to come forward to stand as candidates. Look at the results. In 2006, the PAP won 47% of the seats in Parliament by default through walkovers. So they were already the next government on the nomination day. And in 2001 it was even worse. I think they got about 60% of the seats. We're not going to get anywhere by complaining. If you want change, come out and support us, is my message. That they only are around at elections, that they don't field quality candidates, that they don't have good ideas, or even, I suppose, for some of the parties, that they are very feeble in their criticism of the government. They don't really represent an alternative. And that's what we are trying to combat, to show that we are there for the long haul. I want to show that if I was run over by a bus, tomorrow the Reform Party would continue and would be strong. We've had a phenomenal growth in our membership over the last 6 months, and we now have something like 70 members. We're growing by about 10 new members a month. So, I think we are changing people's perceptions.